Welcome to the Undaunted Man podcast. My name is Mark Johnson, and this is my erstwhile partner,
Geoff Laughton.
And we're here to talk about, I don't know what we're going to talk about today, but it's going to be fun.
We are going to be talking about juicy things like personal responsibility and emotional regulation, and how we're all responsible for our own emotional regulation, regardless of what appendage or lack thereof is between your legs.
Oh, well, that's perfect, because you sent that absolutely excellent article on the great feminization.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic article.
Yeah, and I love when I find stuff that's written or spoken by women.
Well, right, because we don't. I mean, and I get that too, and all right. Well, let's get spicy. The reason that it is more comfortable to read or talk about or even press the point of any criticism of, I'll call it political femininity, when it's written by a woman, is because one of the most painful things for a man is to stand up in front of an upset woman.
Yeah.
One of the, I'm going to say this, and this will be the shortest short in the history of shorts, but this is the short right here. The measure of a man is his ability to stand unperturbed in the face of the upset feminine or an upset woman. If you can't do that, you're not a man. You're a boy play acting like a man. You know, one of the greatest, I saw another great thing, just, I guess it was last week now, where, you know, there's been infinite discussion about what it means to be a man and what masculinity really is. And all the red pill dum-dums talk about this stuff. And it's all about getting the gym and get in shape and smoke cigars and drink whiskey and get big muscles and climb mountains and shoot guns and whatever it else. And all of those things are masculine. And you don't have to do those things in order to be masculine. You need two things to be masculine. You need a spine and you need balls. And if you don't have a spine, meaning that you stand up for what you believe in, you stand up for your integrity, you stand up for what matters to you in the face of withering criticism in the public arena, you don't have a backbone. You're a coward. And we used to know that. When you and I were kids, we all knew that. Everybody knew that. And having balls is a metaphor for being courageous.
Yep.
Maybe even being courageously resolute.
Or undaunted.
Or undaunted even. So those are the things those are the basic requirements of being a man. And one way you measure the amount of spine that you have and the amount of balls is to be able to stand unperturbed, comfortable in your own skin, in the face of an upset woman.
Yeah. Makes a huge difference.
It's the only thing that matters from a certain perspective. And in the public sphere, in our politics these days, in our institutions these days, it really is the only thing that matters. Because if you can't do that, you can't do anything else that's useful.
Yep. And when you're doing that, so we hear a lot about, let's say, the room for a lot of men in our community to be able to strengthen that spine and grow more balls or courage.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in a relationship and your woman is, basically ripping you a new one. Now, maybe if that's happening because you really did do something egregious, disrespectful, whatever. But a lot of what I hear are, men being excoriated because they're not reading their partner's mind, or they're not trying to, they're not doing enough to help her feel safe. But as we've talked about in other episodes, that opens up a whole different thread around, well, where are women taking responsibility for their own emotional regulation and dysregulation? My question is, when you're getting that, heat or flamethrower coming at you, where's the dividing line between standing resolute, hearing, listening, but not caving in on yourself, keeping your spine solid and straight, and being really hearing underneath the words to be able to get what she's trying to accomplish. But if you just are stoic, then I've seen women get even more ballistic. And maybe that's the answer, is you let them run their course. And we go back to Max Sellman, like just being the seawall for the crashing waves of feminine emotion and chaos.
Well, let me throw a couple things out. And one, the first thing I'm going to throw out is a challenge. I'm going to challenge you to stop putting disclaimers in the front of every conversation about masculine feminine dynamics. Because the first thing you did was put out, you let off with the disclaimer.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you might have done something to deserve it. Fuck that. No, because so here's the point. Actually, there's a bunch of points, but here's the main thing. If someone comes at you breathing fire, fully reactive, being disrespectful, abusive, whatever it is, expressing, dumping all of their negative emotions on you, you have zero obligation to stand there and be a punching bag for anyone, whether they are a man or a woman. They do not. And the idea that a man should stand there and take it because he's a man, and that a woman has a right to shit all over somebody just because she's a woman is it beggars the imagination. Because in what world is that okay? If the sexes were flipped,
Yeah,
that would be not. It's never okay under any circumstances. So the the foundation from which you began your argument is fundamentally flawed in that it implies that we have a responsibility to allow ourselves to be shit on.
Yep.
That's number one. Number two, it infantilizes women. It takes responsibility away from the woman for being responsible for the healthy expression of how she's feeling and what she needs. Grown women should be held to the same standards of adulthood that grown men are.
Agreed.
We are responsible for our communication, all of us.
Yep.
And the idea that a woman should just be able to puke whatever bullshit's coming out of her mouth because she's got an emotion, because she's a woman and that's okay, is a heinous, corrosive double standard that allows women to stay young girls instead of being grown adults. Doesn't work. Can't work. But we have been socialized into that.
Yeah.
For the last 50 years through a bunch of feminist bullshit victim stories. Sorry. Take responsibility. You want to communicate with me? Do it in a way that's responsible.
Yep.
Period. Because you know what? The right answer, if a woman's coming at you like that, or if anybody comes at you like that, walk away. Don't walk away mad. Don't scream back. Don't make a face. Don't roll your eyes. Don't react or respond in any way. Just stoically turn around and walk away.
Yeah.
Because there is no upside. There's no benefit to staying in that conversation. There's no winning for either of you.
Yeah,
now,
it just empowers the dysfunctional behavior.
It empowers and it validates the dysfunctional behavior. And if you the way we have been socialized, there is simply no way for a man to come out with his integrity and his self-respect intact, because we are expected to cower and cater to a woman's emotion. And not, by the way, not walking away and trying to express empathy. In that circumstance, it might work out. It might work okay. You might be, oh geez, honey, I'm sorry you're feeling that. Now, if she calms down immediately and self-regulates, cool. Worked.
Right.
Great. Fantastic. Fully support that. 100% advocacy for that. If you express empathy for what she's feeling and she just keeps going and ramps it up and makes it about you, then congratulations. You have just engaged in toxic empathy.
Right.
Because you've engaged in empathy without healthy boundaries.
Yep.
And there is no upside to that. In the short term, you get to feel really good. You walk out, you got your little badge of honor on here, and oh, I just have all this empathy and I just did such a good job. And all I had to do was be on the receiving end of a bunch of abusive behavior for half an hour. But she feels better.
Right.
And all I had to do was apologize for things that I didn't do or that I didn't realize I did, and apologize for, how bad she feels and, or whatever it is. And it's not about this whole thing is not about making women wrong. It's not about making men wrong, because there are plenty of men that engage in toxic empathy.
Yep.
And there are plenty of men that fail to to regulate their emotions. The difference is when men fail to regulate their emotions, we typically go to jail or we get our asses kicked by another man. Those options, those things that's not what happens when a woman fails to regulate her emotions.
Yep.
There is no social expectation for a woman to regulate her emotions in the way that a man regulates his.
So to that point, I think it would be helpful to give a couple of pointers in addition to being self-aware enough to watch your own emotional regulation or dysregulation. But if the hook has been taken and you're snagged as a man in your emotional reactivity, yes, you need to walk away. But what would you recommend as an on-the-spot way to take a good stab at quelling the reactivity and getting regrounded in what you know is true?
Well, I can tell you what I do,
Yeah,
and I'm not perfect at this, but
me neither.
I'm pretty good these days. But I'm not perfect at this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I feel, because when we get emotional, we can feel that in our bodies, right? I mean,
Yep.
everyone can. All human beings can feel it, and the way I experience it is, it's like this energy. It's like this whoosh, and it feels like all the energy rushes up to my head and chest, and I am, I'm ready to take a deep breath and just let it all out. And what I've trained myself to do is when I feel that whoosh feeling, that's a stop sign.
Yeah.
I feel that and it's like, whew, whoa, time for me to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes practice to do that.
Yeah.
And it takes character development to get to the point, and some people have it naturally, some people may need to work on it and develop it, but you have to have developed the character to be comfortable enough in your own skin to recognize that you have equal value to the person that you are in discussion with.
Yeah.
You are equally valuable, which means that you are no more deserving of being on the receiving end of that abuse than they are, and they're not deserving of any abuse. And because that's true, you can walk away. And I guarantee you that any man that's been in an argument with a woman where he was the one that came to her emotionally dysregulated and screaming at the top of his lungs, I guarantee you that woman has walked away from him, as
Yeah.
she should. You have to learn to do the same thing. But that whooshing feeling, that energy rising feeling, whoop, okay, time to walk away.
Yeah. It's the perfect. Terry Real uses that exact word when he's talking to couples that he counsels. He calls it the whoosh.
Mm.
And his hard and fast rule that I agree with, that you're also echoing, is when you begin to feel that whoosh, you have got to re-regulate right then and there. And if you can't, then you go away until you can.
Right. There's no other option.
No, no. And that's really, it just made me think of another indicator might not always be an indicator that you're in early whooshness, but it's a great indicator that it's probably coming any moment, which is when you're listening and you're either starting to come up with an argument to defend yourself around something you don't even need to defend yourself about, because more often than not, my experience with my wife is when she gets, really angry and starts getting shitty, it's almost always a projection.
Oh, yeah.
And if it's not, then I'm happy to own it, but not in that energy of,
Mm-hmm.
And so when you notice you're either coming up with rebuttals and defense, and you go there, then you're actually virtually guaranteeing that this dynamic you and I are talking about is going to keep going. Then the other thing is when you go to blame. And I'm saying this more and more with the couples I work with. When either of you goes to start blaming, that's another stop sign.
Mm-hmm.
Shut the fuck up, go take some space, and look at your part in generating or creating this very conflict.
Right.
And it might be a really small, or you have no part.
Mm-hmm.
You just came in the door innocent in a great headspace, and she's been upset all afternoon. And now, because you're supposed to be the safe one to help her feminine feel safe, well, then that makes it okay for her to just dump all that on you. And to your point, it isn't.
Right.
Either way,
Right.
it isn't. We're back to
Right.
self-responsibility again.
Mm-hmm. And setting healthy boundaries.
Right.
That's the key. That's the key to all this, because there's a whole lot of conversation out in the public sphere about healthy boundaries and what it means to set healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries are about our behavior. They're not about other people.
Right.
When I set a boundary, it's a boundary for myself. It's not about controlling anybody else. And an example of healthy boundaries is when the whoosh comes up, or as you mentioned, when the blaming comes up, turn around, walk away, because nothing good is going to come out of that. There's only going to be damage.
Yeah, I don't think we could overstate that enough. Nothing good comes from trying to communicate when you're in the midst of that whoosh or being triggered or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard stop. And if you walk away and, that drives your partner up a wall, that's their issue.
Right.
And you can deal with that later when you're both back into being mature grown-ups.
Right.
That and I think it's really a valuable thing to understand too, because you and I have heard guys say, well, yeah, I got really upset, and maybe she got even more upset and turned up the heat, and I had this moment or moments of not knowing what to do. And it was helpful for me to learn that part of why we can get immobilized in the face of that is because the prefrontal cortex, when we feel that we may not be safe, and this is all humans, it isn't male or female, when we feel in danger, then our core, like our abdominal core, to fight, flight, or fix requires more blood and energy to mobilize to be able to do whichever of those we're going to do. And where most of that blood supply comes from is the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that helps us regulate. And it's where logic lives and choices live. So literally when a human says, I couldn't think straight, they're correct. All the more reason to get the fuck out of Dodge until you can get back, like really
Well,
get yourself rebalanced.
well, and we can train ourselves out of that. That is, I mean, yes, that's you did a perfect job of explaining the physiological response.
Yeah.
But we can, those things are learned. I mean, there's a certain degree, if we're totally operating out of our lizard brain, that, instinctively those things can happen.
Right.
But thankfully, we no longer live entirely in our lizard brains, and we can train ourselves out of that. I mean, as humans, we've been training ourselves out of that for millennia.
Mm-hmm.
There are dozens of methodologies for doing it, dozens upon dozens. The military does it, martial artists do it, monks do it. There are spiritual paths that are involved with this, that do the same thing. It's all about learning to be non-reactive.
Yep.
And we can all learn to be non-reactive. Many of us choose not to be non-reactive because we identify with our emotions. We think our emotions is who we are, and that isn't true.
Right.
And it just so happens we're talking about this in terms of masculine and feminine dynamics, because on average, women tend to be more identified with their emotions than men.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And with the way we've evolved socially over the last 50 years, 60 years, and as femininity has been, actually, that's not true. I was about to say that the feminine has been deified and the masculine has been demonized, but that's not actually true. What's true is that women have been deified and men have been demonized. Masculinity is celebrated in women and demonized in men. And femininity is demonized in women. We're talking about in the public sphere here, in our politics and in our media.
Right.
I mean, you see what happens every single time a feminine woman gets press, gets known. The feminists come after her with fucking knives, tooth and claw, going to tear her down.
Yep.
You're setting women back by being feminine. But femininity is celebrated in men by these same people. It is such an obvious manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
It's an obvious manipulation, and it's been going on for forever.
Yep.
And the narrative is finally starting to break down because it's a false narrative.
Yeah.
And just for the record, for all you people that are just getting your hackles up right now, and our position is not that all women should be feminine and all men should be masculine, and if there's any variation or deviation from that prescription, then that's somehow wrong or bad. What we actually promote and what we help all of the men that we work with do is bring the energy that the moment requires. Sometimes men need to be soft and nurturing. Sometimes men need to be strong and stoic. There's no universal rule that says, well, you're a man, so you should be stoic all of the time.
Right.
That's dumb. And there's no rule that says, well, you're a woman, so you should be feminine all the time. Equally dumb. But you bring what the moment requires, and beware of anyone that weaponizes masculinity or femininity or sex.
Yep.
Because those are the people you need to not listen to and you need to run from, because they're not going to lead you down a good path.
Yeah, and put another way, or maybe it's not another way, but just to augment that, when we are working with people, coaching people about what you just shared, we keep emphasizing authenticity. And that, in my mind, includes, in any given moment, what is the clearest part of your perception, awareness, and thinking assessing is needed in this moment, and bringing that authentically and really honoring your authenticity as not bad or wrong. It is what it is. And when we live in it and we're connected to it, then, in my experience, you can be pretty bulletproof, whatever's coming at you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I just want to emphasize that authenticity, to me, is another really good word for what we're talking about.
I'm going to push back a little.
Okay.
For the algorithm.
Yeah.
But also because let me say it this way. It is important for us to be our authentic selves, but if we are placing our idea of our authentic self, whatever we think that is, whatever we think that means, above what the moment requires, then we are, by definition, not bringing what the moment requires. Because what the moment requires is independent of our personal identity.
Right. Yeah, I get that.
So it's a great practice for developing psychological resilience. It also happens to be an unbelievably beneficial spiritual practice.
Yeah.
Is to just bring what the moment requires instead of filtering it through all of our definitions and beliefs about what we think should happen, or who we think we are, or who we think we need to show up as, because we are placing our selves, our little selves, our egoic selves, above the needs of the moment, above the needs of the people that we're trying to help or serve, or the problem we're trying to solve.
Yep.
And that's a fundamental problem that we have these days. People can't see beyond themselves, which brings us full circle to what we've talked about in the past. What about me?
Right.
What about me? Well, there's a kid trapped under a burning car. What about me? Fuck off. What about me? Lift the car off the kid.
Right. Yeah.
So there you go.
Excellent. So what Mark and I hope we've accomplished in having this conversation is that we've helped you get more clarity on where you can keep improving your own level of self-respect, your own mastery of being able to be aware, like fully aware of where you're at in any given moment, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and to use that awareness and that perception to help assess what does any given circumstance, particularly if your partner is ripping you a new one out of the blue, so that you can respond and get ever better at not reacting. Because when we react, to use a very therapeutically technical term, we fuck ourselves. So if you want to learn more and watch men actually practicing this, learning about this in depth and in community, please subscribe to our channel, because you're going to be getting more and more of this. Or go on to theundauntedman.com and click on what we offer. And we have groups, we have one-on-one work. So if we're speaking to you, we're speaking to you here, here, and down there, then come learn more. And thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.